Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss any video lesson from Rao's IAS Study Cell. Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an analysis of the Hindu newspaper from UPSC perspective. Today we will discuss the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 6th May 2020. And the articles that we will discuss today are displayed on your screen. So let us start our discussion. Now before starting today's discussion, let us look at one of the important tools that will help you in the preliminary examination. And you might already be knowing that this year's preliminary examination has been postponed due to the coronavirus outbreak. Now, in this line, as the date for the preliminary examination is yet to be announced by the UPSC, you should utilize this time for your preparation. And for better utilization of your time, we have come up with this e-learn platform which will help you in your preparation. And in this line, if you visit the prelims test series tab on the e-learn platform, you will find that there are certain free quizzes and there are also paid series. So in this line, the DNS quizzes and the MCQs from the Hindu newspaper are free for all the students. Again, the current affair tests from the prelims test series have also been made free for all the aspirants. Now these tests are 12 in number and they cover the current affairs of each month. And these current affair tests are available from the month of February-March 2019 till the month of April 2020. So for example, in the first test, the questions will be based on the current affairs of the February and the March month. And accordingly, you can go through all the current affair tests which are free for all the students. Now these current affair tests are mainly based on the monthly current affairs which are covered in the Focus magazine of the Rao's IAS. And for getting a free copy of the Focus magazine, you should visit the study material tab. And on this page, in the drop down menu, you have to choose the current affair magazine. And in the second drop down menu, you have to choose the subsection that is the current affairs. And if you click on this filter, you will find that the Focus magazines of current affairs are free for you. So as you can see on the screen, the current affair of the April month is available. So by clicking on the download tab, you can easily download the current affairs of April month. So for a good preparation of current affairs, do go through the Focus magazines and try and attempt the free tests which are available related to the current affairs. After this, let us start our discussion. Now this article on page number 6 highlights that the COVID-19 outbreak has served as a wake-up call for the global community. And it has exposed the fundamental flaws in the basic tenets of the economics which have dominated the public policy for past 50 years. So in this regard, the author highlights that we must turn this crisis into an opportunity and try to find the problems with the current model of economic development. And again, we need to view the COVID-19 in a historical context in order to avoid repeating the past mistakes and accordingly plan for the future. So in this background, let us understand the fundamental flaws in our economic model and how to address these flaws by devising a new economic model which is more sustainable, fair, equitable, healthy and resilient. Now this can be a very important aspect for us from the mains examination point of view because this article highlights the issues with the current economic model which has dominated the public policy. So in this regard, it can be a very important topic under the inclusive growth, and this will fall under the General Studies paper 3 under the topic economic development. Now highlighting the broad principles of a new economic model which is more sustainable and fair, the author has suggested degrowth. And in this line, he has suggested that there is huge obsession among the countries to promote their GDP size by increasing their production of goods and services. However, such a model of development has been lopsided. And in the last 50 years, it has led to destruction to biodiversity, higher pollution levels and growing inequalities. And thus, the excessive obsession with the GDP growth rates has led to growing inequalities between different sections of India's population also. And we note that India is placed at 5th position in terms of GDP size across the world. However, it lags behind on the human development indicators. And in terms of the human development indicators, for example, the gross happiness index and the human development index, India is at par with the sub-Saharan countries, even though it falls at the 5th place based on the size of the GDP across the globe. So this highlights that the development model which has been followed by countries across the world has been lopsided and which is more clearly visible in case of India. So in this background, author suggests that the COVID-19 has led to short-term positive social and environmental impacts such as the community support, local organizing and solidarity, less pollution, and greenhouse gas emissions. However, these changes would be temporary unless we give up our obsession with the GDP growth model. And hence, the COVID 19 crisis should be seen as an opportunity to introspect on the present economic model and devise a new model. And in this background, recently a group of 170 academicians came together to sign and release a 5 point manifesto titled Degrowth to devise a new model of economy. So, in this line, let us look at these 5 point manifesto of the degrowth model, which has been released by the academicians or important economic academicians. Now, the first principle in this new economic model is that there should be a move away from the development focused on the aggregate GDP growth to critical public sectors. And the countries need to differentiate among sectors depending upon their criticality, importance, sustainability, and reliability. And the critical sectors can include education, health, clean energy, housing, etc. And these sectors need to be promoted by the governments through their higher investments. And further sectors such as the oil, gas, mining, etc. need a degrowth at this point. And those sectors which are unsustainable and non-critical should not be promoted by the government. So this is the first suggestion in the 5 point manifesto which is related to the degrowth. The second point is that there is a need for establishing an economic framework which focuses on redistribution. And the redistribution in the new economic model should take place through universal basic income, strong progressive taxation, reduced working hours, and recognition of care work and essential public services such as health and education for their intrinsic value rather than for their monetary value. So in short, the author highlights that there should be redistributive justice in economy, and this redistribution should reach the most vulnerable sections of the society. Further, there is a need for agricultural transformation towards regenerative agriculture, which is based on biodiversity conservation as well as fair agricultural employment conditions and wages. Fourthly, there is a need for reduction of consumption and travel. And there is a need for drastic shift from luxury and wasteful consumption and travel to basic, necessary, sustainable, and satisfying consumption and travel. And further, there is a need for debt cancellation for the workers and small business establishments, and these can help in tiding over the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic issues that it has created. So, in short, the author has highlighted that there is a need for moving away from GDP-led growth model. And also there is a need for focusing on the redistribution of wealth in the economy. And again, there is a need for moving away from luxury consumption to sustainable consumption. Further, the author argues that there is a need for recognizing the importance of borders. And this has been highlighted in the context of the huge wave of globalization which the world has witnessed in the past few years. However, the COVID-19 outbreak has challenged this notion of globalization as a tool of development. And this globalization based economic model propagated the idea that promotion of free movement of goods, services, and investments across the world would benefit both the rich and the poor countries equally. And borders across the countries were considered to be impediment to growth and development of the countries. However, the COVID-19 has brought home the point that each and every country needs to find its own model of development. And globalization cannot emerge as one size fits all model of development for all the countries. So rather than being benefited from the globalization, the poor and the developing countries have got adversely affected by opening their borders to cheap goods from other countries. And the free movement of capital has also affected the poor and the developing countries in two ways. Firstly, it has not enabled them to promote domestic companies due to the presence of foreign companies. And secondly, the foreign companies play a huge role in influencing the policies of government, and accordingly, they hinder the democratic processes in the poor countries. And hence, the COVID-19 outbreak has highlighted the flaws in the present globalization-based economic model, and thus it has also highlighted that boundaries are actually good because it helps the countries in developing their own model of development. And the two ways in which the globalization impacts the economy is that it does not lead to the promotion of domestic companies. And this is because the foreign companies which are rich in nature, they dominate the market. And secondly, the foreign companies play a role in influencing the governmental policies, and accordingly, the democratic process is also affected in the poor countries. Again, the author highlights that the COVID 19 outbreak has challenged the laissez faire economic model. Now, the prevailing economic model has propagated the idea of a laissez faire economy, and in such kind of economy, the private sector is considered to be more efficient and hence it is given free hand. And in such a model, the role of government has only been confined to lawmaking and regulations. So the key role is expected to be played by the private sector. However, the government is only confined to the sector of lawmaking and regulations, and it does not take into its own hand the services for the citizens. So it was believed that such a laissez-faire economy would be able to promote growth and development without any government intervention. However, such a notion which is associated with the laissez-faire economy has been challenged twice in the last decade. First was the global financial crisis of 2008, and now also this notion has been challenged in the context of coronavirus outbreak. Now, during both these times, it was the government which was in the driving seat of the economy, and it was the private sector which was requesting the governments for the bailouts. And hence, the COVID 19 has served as a wake up call to show us that the role of the government in an economy cannot be undermined. And such a role of the government cannot be undermined even in a capitalistic model of government. And during the time of crisis, it is only the government which can bring much needed stability and certainty in an economy. Further, the author highlights that there is a need for treating the human beings as citizens and not as the consumers. Now, the prevailing economic model treats the human beings as consumers. And being consumers, the human beings are entitled to high quality goods and services at cheaper prices. However, the prevailing economic model fails to realize that human beings are entitled to broader set of rights rather than just access to high quality goods at cheaper prices. And in this line, the author highlights that the human beings are entitled to rights such as justice, dignity, fairness, impartiality, etc. And such kind of dignity, fairness, and impartiality is not being delivered by the present economic model. So, in this context, the author says that the welfare of citizens should be the goal of a country rather than the welfare of the consumers only. Another aspect of a new economic model should be that it should focus on collaboration rather than on competition. And we note that competition is one of the pillars of the prevailing economic model. Now, in this context, the author says that the present economic model focuses on promoting competition between the governments and between the private sector entities to foster innovation and promote growth and development. However, such a model fails to realize that collaborative efforts can be more fruitful than competition at times. Now, for example, a group of 2 to 3 private sector entities having specialized expertise in different fields can come together and develop a new vaccine. Similarly, the governments across the world can collaborate with each other to achieve sustainable development goals. So, in case of collaborative efforts, we would have synergistic and coordinated efforts leading to better outcomes. So the focus should more be on collaboration rather than only on the competition. And again, the last point is related to the public ownership of the intellectual property regime. Now, in this context, the author says that the vesting of intellectual property rights has led to development of monopolies, due to which the IPR owners have been able to amass huge amount of wealth, and which is also one of the factors which is leading to growing inequality in countries across the globe. Further, concerns have been raised that such kind of IPRs or intellectual property rights may not have led to commensurate benefit for the poor and the marginalized sections due to the higher costs which are imposed because of intellectual property rights. And hence, the need of the hour is to evolve new institutions for public ownership of technologies and for the regulation of their use. So, in conclusion, the author says that the financial crisis of 2008 did not lead to fundamental rethinking of our economic models. However, the COVID 19 outbreak has exposed the structural weaknesses in the global economy, and hence we need to learn from this crisis and design a new economic model which is more resilient, sustainable, equitable, and healthy. Now, the key aspects of the new economic model which has been suggested by the author focuses on degrowth or moving away from the GDP growth led economic model. And in this, the focus should be more on redistribution, health, education, and agriculture which is sustainable. Further, there is a need for moving away from luxury consumption to satisfying consumption and sustainable consumption. Secondly, the globalization has not provided benefits to all the sections of the society. And in this context, the author highlights the importance of the borders, and hence the countries need to find their own model of development. Again, the coronavirus outbreak has challenged the notion of laissez-faire economy, and it wants the government to play a more proactive role in the economy. And further, there is a need for moving away from treating the citizens merely as consumers. And in the end, there is a need for collaboration rather than competition, and also there is a need for public ownership of the intellectual property rights, which has been leading to growing inequalities within the global economy. So these are a few very important points, and these can be very important for us from the mains examination point of view. With this, let's take up the next article now. Now, this article on page number 1 is related to the recent interview of Nobel laureate Abhijit Banerjee. And in this, he has highlighted certain steps that should be taken by the government of India for improving the situation in the economy. And some of the points that have been highlighted by the Nobel laureate Abhijit Banerjee can be very important for us from the General Studies paper 3 point of view under the topic economic development. Now, firstly, he has highlighted the issues with the government's package. And the first issue is that the package which has been provided by the government of India for improving the economic situation is insufficient according to him. In this, the author has highlighted that the US government has announced an economic package of $2 trillion, and this is worth 10% of the GDP of United States of America. Now, in contrast to this, India's economic package of rupees 1.7 lakh crore is hardly around 1% of India's GDP. And further, Abhijit Banerjee has highlighted that the cash transfers which are provided by the government of India are too less to provide relief to the poor and the vulnerable sections. Secondly, there will be issues in benefiting the migrant workers, and this is because there has been issues in the identification of the below poverty line population, especially in the urban areas. And this task of identifying the BPL population in urban areas has always been challenging, and hence the migrant population in the urban areas are unlikely to get the benefits from the increased entitlements which are being provided by the government of India, because most of them do not have ration cards. So after looking at some of the issues which have been highlighted by Abhijit Banerjee regarding the government of India's package for economic revival, let us look at some of the suggestions which have been provided by him. Now, what needs to be done to deal with the economic crisis that is happening because of the COVID-19 pandemic? So in this line, the first suggestion that has been provided by Abhijit Banerjee is the need for higher fiscal stimulus package. And in this, he argues that most of the countries across the world have announced higher fiscal stimulus package. However, in case of India, the fiscal stimulus package is hardly around 1% of India's GDP. And hence, in order to provide relief to the poor sections and to promote growth and development, there is a need to announce much higher fiscal stimulus package. Second is that there is need for direct cash transfers. And in this line, he suggests that the economy could be revived only through the demand stimulus. And as long as the demand does not improve, the firms would not increase the production of goods and services. And as such, the demand within the economy could be revived by direct cash transfers. Further, he argues that the government must not target the cash transfers only to the poor people, rather the cash transfers should be available to bottom 60% of India's population. And he suggests that the bottom 60% of India's population should be provided with cash transfers because the identification of beneficiaries is too cumbersome during the pandemic times. Further, regarding the demand, he suggests that by increasing the demand, it will lead to increase in the production of goods and services by the manufacturers. Again, it will also lead to creation of employment opportunities. And if the employment opportunities increase, it will lead to increased GDP growth rates. Further, he suggests that there is a need for involvement of the community. And in this line, he has highlighted the example of Indonesian government. And in this, the Indonesian government had implemented a pilot project which involved the community in a particular area for deciding as to who would get the cash transfer benefits. And such a pilot project was considered to be successful. So in this line, he suggests that India could also implement such kind of a project. Further, for increasing the provision of food to the migrant workers, He says that the migrant workers are unable to get food grains from the fair price shops in the urban areas due to the absence of ration cards with them. So the government needs to provide temporary ration cards to such migrants so that they can have access to food grains. Again, there has been a disruption to the cash flows of the business entities, and this has made them more vulnerable to defaults, leading to possible increase in the non-performing assets of the banks. And in this line, the Reserve Bank of India has announced a moratorium of 3 months on the repayment of loans for the benefits of business enterprises. However, he suggests that there is a need for going beyond the moratorium and announcing the waiver of loans. And this would strengthen the balance sheet of the companies, leading to higher investment and job creation. So these are a few important suggestions which have been provided by the Nobel laureate Abhijit Banerjee, who has been awarded with Nobel Prize for Economics. And some of the suggestions which are provided by him can be very useful for us in writing answers in the mains examination. With this, let's take up the next article now. Now, this editorial on page number 7 highlights the need for increasing the wages for the laborers in order to stimulate India's growth. And in this line, the author highlights that the COVID-19 has exposed the problems which are faced by the migrant population in India. And most of the migrants belong to the category of casual workers, and they do not have access to social security schemes such as insurance, pension, etc. He further says that the casual workers work for long hours under exploitative conditions. And the overall consumption among this section of India's population is also lower. And he highlights that according to the official consumption expenditure surveys for 2011 and 12, the richest 5% accounted for as much as 64.4% of the overall consumption of durables in urban India. And the share of poorest 50% was only 13.4%. So in this line, he suggests that what could be the reason for the poor status of the casual workers and what needs to be done. And some of the points are important for us from General Studies paper 3 under the topic Economic Development. Now, in a previous DNS video, we have already discussed the classification of workers in India according to the National Statistical Office. So what we'll do is that after looking at the suggestions which have been provided by the author in this article, we will revise from the previous DNS video the classification of workers in India according to the National Statistical Office. Now, regarding the reason for the poor status of the casual workers, which is highlighted by the consumption expenditure by this section of the society, the author highlights that the mainstream idea has always been that the firms should reduce their production costs by keeping the wages low. And such an idea has led to stagnation in the wages for the casual workers. So the author suggests that we need to plan for an economic growth which is driven by rising wages and a developmental model that is dispersed far and wide across the country and is not centered in a few big cities. So there is a need for decentralization of the economic activities. Further, the firms should increase the wages of the workers so that the consumption expenditure within the economy also increases. And we have seen that one of the important suggestions which has been provided by almost all the economists is that there is a need for increasing the consumption expenditure, which will boost the demand and which will ultimately lead to increase in the growth rate. So here also the author suggests that there is a need for increasing the wages for the workers and which could lead to the increase in consumption expenditure within the economy. Further, the author suggests that the government must focus on higher investment in the rural areas to widen the demand. And in this line, the government can focus on higher investments in the food processing industries in the rural areas. And this kind of initiative will have a multiplier effect in the form of boosting the farmer incomes, reducing food wastages, and creating employment opportunities, etc. So after this, let us revise from the previous DNS video the classification of workers in India according to the National Statistical Office. Now, in the prelims examination of 2018, a question was asked regarding the observations of the National Sample Survey Organization's 70th round of situation assessment of survey of agricultural households. Now, this question was a pretty factual question and one needed to be aware of the important observations or the report which was released by the NSSO. Now, in this, if you look at the statements, the first is that Rajasthan has the highest percentage share of agricultural households amongst its rural household, The second statement is that out of the total agricultural households in the country, a little over 60% belong to other backward classes. And third is that in Kerala, a little over 60% of the agricultural household reported to have received maximum income from the sources other than the agricultural activities. Now, in these three statements, the second statement that is given here is incorrect because the number of OBCs in the agricultural households are about 45% as highlighted by this report of NSSO. And by knowing that the second statement is correct, you can eliminate the options A, B and B. And the correct answer that comes out is C, that is 1 and 3 only. So now if you look at the different categories of the workers which have been defined by the National Statistical Office, you will find that it defines or classifies the workers on the basis of employment status into three particular categories. First is the self-employed workers, second are the regular wage or salaried employees, and third are the casual laborers. Now this first self-employed category includes the employers, own account workers and unpaid family labor. And this includes those who work for themselves and do not sell their labor power to anyone else in return of wage. So although they are working and contributing to the economic activity, they are not getting any wage in return. Now in this, the own account workers include those who operated their enterprises on their own account without hiring any labor during the reference period, while employers are those own account workers who ran their enterprises by hiring laborers. So employers have hired laborers, however, the own account workers have not hired any laborers. Further, the unpaid family laborers or helpers include those who are engaged in their household enterprises. So even these people are not getting any wage in the return. Now then there are the regular wage or the salaried employees, and these are those who receive predetermined wages or salaries on a regular basis. And then there are casual workers, and these include those laborers who are hired for a very short period of time on either daily or a monthly basis. So these are the three categories of workers which have been defined by the National Statistical Office. And within the self-employed category, there are three categories, and that include the employers, the own account workers and the unpaid family labor. Now the trend of change in these categories of the workers has been provided by the Economic Survey of this year, and they have provided a comparative study of the different categories of workers in the year 2011 and 12 with that of the year 2017 and 18, and both these have been provided for rural plus urban combined. So you can see in these pie charts that the percentage of casual workers has dropped from 30% in the year 2011 and 12 to 25% in the year 2017 and 18. So this marks a drop of 5%. Again, the percentage share of the regular wage or salaried workers was about 18% in 2011 and 12, and now it has changed to about 23% in the year 2017 and 18. Again, the percentage of people who are unpaid family laborers has also dropped, and it was 18% in 2011 and 12, and it is now 14%. And the own account workers were about 33% in 11 and 12, and now they have increased to about 36% in the year 2017 and 18. So some of the important observations are that the share of different categories in the present times is that the self-employed are about 52%, the casual workers are about 25%, and the regular wage or salaried workers are about 23%. And in this, the trend of largest share is that the own account workers account for the largest share of workers, and they are about 36%, and they are then followed by the casual workers who are about 25%, and the regular wage or salaried workers about 23%. Further, another important trend that should be noticed is that there has been an increasing trend in the regular wage or the salaried workers, and their share has increased from 18% in 2011 and 12 to 23% in 17 and 18. Further, as far as the self-employed category is concerned, the proportion of self-employed workers has remained unchanged at about 52%. And regarding the casual workers, we have noticed earlier that there is a decrease in their share from 30% to 25%. So these are a few important observations of the report. And with this, we conclude today's discussion. Now let's take up the question for the day.